Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here. Another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today is being joined by Adam and Jordan of Texas Fungus. And they have been only in existence for a couple years now, but we have watched their rapid growth and rapid pivoting as they got hit by COVID and had to change marketing channels drastically. And so we thought it'd be great to have them on and have them chat all about things fungi and how they've been changing their marketing. So welcome, Adam and Jordan.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah, Jordan, do you want to give us a little bit of background about mushrooms and how you got started with them?
Yeah, sure. So I started as a chef, as a cook. I was in the industry for a little over 10 years and then kind of got chewed up and spit out and really wanted life to go a different way. But I really loved, farming and where I was as a chef and as a cook, getting to work with local farmers. But I had never worked with a mushroom farmer. Like, we had beef guys, we had people doing microgreens and field crops and, things of that nature. But we never had a mushroom farmer stop by in any of the restaurants that I worked at. And so after I got out of the industry, I kind of went to corporate America and quite honestly just hated it, the minute that I got there, and was kind of looking for a way out. And so naturally I went back to my roots of, okay, I want to get in the kitchen back in some way, but I wanted to step onto the other side of things where it's not so much just executing ingredients, but okay, how do we sustainably go about producing ingredients that are in a more nutritious, beneficial way to the end consumer? And no one that I had known knew how to grow mushrooms. And then what kind of sparked it for me was one of my friends got me a grow your own mushroom kit.
Oh, very cool.
From one of the the big box stores or whatever. And he was just like, hey, I found this. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I tried it and it didn't work. And so I called the company and I was like, I did all the steps. So can you point me in the right direction? And they're like, yeah, well, we don't really have time to explain all of mycology to you. So just figure it out on your own.
Oh,
and I was like, well, that's what I'm going to freaking do. And that's when I just really, I wish I had a better story or a better write-up for it, but I literally just got a bottle of tequila and just sat on YouTube for like 8 hours, just like researching, going crazy on videos and message boards and, even on the shroomery, stuff like that. And then afterwards, I just had this newfound fire, burning inside me. And I was like, I can freaking do that. And after I contaminated so many things, I finally got it right. I originally started growing on hardwood logs and cutting down trees, in the summer, even on, your day off. It's like, well, that was not so fun. And we just started, 30 minutes ago. Because you're out in the woods for, 30 minutes in the morning, even in Texas summer, you kind of wish you were near a pool very, very quickly. So then I started transitioning to, okay, so what does this indoor kind of grow? And then I'd, found some other videos on that naturally. And then I started buying some books and reading. And I was like, okay, what is this laminar flow hood thing and what do you do with it? Just different things like that. And so just kind of little by little started piecing things together and then was much able to quicker grow mushrooms that, chefs wanted. And so, or that they were at least willing to pay for. And so naturally, when you start a new business, you reach out to your your first network of people, right? And so I pitched my product to chefs that I knew and some ones that I didn't know. And they were like, wow, this is great. Can you grow us any more? And then on a group, another mushroom growing Facebook group, that's where I found Adam. And someone they made a shout out of like, hey, where are you from? Where are you growing mushrooms at? And then he said, I think either Bedford or Euless. And I was like, wait, that's in the Metroplex. Who is this guy? And so like I shot him a message and I was like, hey man, we should link up because I don't know of anybody else around here doing this. And he was like, well, I'm not really growing, but I'm super interested. I have a really nice, pretty badass lettuce operation going on. But I'm interested in mushrooms. So yeah, if you want to come down to my farmer's market booth, we can chat. And he even allowed me to sell my mushrooms at his booth alongside him, which was really cool. Didn't even charge me a booth fee or nothing. But after that, then we were just like, hey, I kind of like you, you kind of like me. Let's try to do something together. And then we had this idea of, okay, well, we can go we'll get a 2,000 square foot warehouse. You get 1,000 square feet and I'll get the other 1,000 square feet because, as you know, plants need CO2. Mushrooms generate CO2. So we were like, yeah, it's going to be this nice, awesome symbiotic relationship. And then we started crunching some numbers. And Adam straight up told me, he was like, for what you can produce per square footage, doesn't make sense for you to go in business with me at all. Yeah. And it's almost like he tried to talk me out of it because, with lettuce and stuff like that, you can only go square. But with mushrooms, you can go cubic. So it was kind of funny when he was like, okay, he straight up asked me, okay, what's the square footage that you could generate? And I was like, well, I mean, I can go multiple levels, so as high as the ceiling will go. And then he was like, okay, shout out a number. And I think he was just kind of like really, really surprised, not dumbfounded, but just like, you're joking, right? And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And then he was like, okay, well, why don't we just grow mushrooms? And I was like, yeah, I think so too. So then we went from, my 200 square foot, 1-car garage that I was growing in, and that was a whole operation.
Wow.
Very extremely micro, less than micro. And then we took over the 2,000 square foot warehouse January 1st of 2019 down in Arlington. And we've just been rocking and rolling ever since.
Cool. And okay, so Adam, tell us your side. How did you get into mushrooms? It sounds like you were just poking around for a while there.
So for a long time I'd been poking around, just trying to learn and get some information. I'm the type of person that I can learn a lot from a book or from a video, but I really prefer to actually go visit somebody that's doing it, work side by side, hand in hand with them, and get that physical experiential learning. So I've done hydroponics and aquaponics for probably the better part of the last 10 years. I did that while I was teaching high school for the last 20 and such. And I'd always wanted to grow mushrooms. They fascinated me.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity probably 8 or 9 years ago. Oh, actually, no, more than that, probably 12 or 14 years ago, to go to Growing Power for a weekend. And
oh, cool.
One of the sessions that we did there was growing oyster mushrooms on pasteurized straw in hanging baskets in the greenhouse. I was like, okay, well, that's a great way to increase the revenue of my greenhouse. I can just hang these baskets of mushrooms and I get that, and the CO2 comes down into the plants. It's all good. And like Jordan said, there's not any real mushroom farmers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I never had that opportunity to find anybody that I could go learn from. So yeah, when a random post showed up in a Facebook group and this guy said he was in Dallas, and then he messaged me. I was like, yeah, we definitely need to meet and talk and figure this out. But no, farming's just, it's something that I've always loved and always loved doing. And growing mushrooms is so completely different than any other type of farming and agriculture I've ever done. It's just, it's a new adventure every day, especially at our farm.
Okay, so what makes mushrooms so different?
Let's see. The contamination factor, the substrates that they grow on, the speed at which they grow. I mean, our quick growing species, from the day we start making the bag to the day we harvest it, is usually 20 to 21 days. I mean, that's our fast growing species, and
Mm.
it's super fast. Um, it's so cool to watch the mushrooms grow once they start pinning, because they'll double in size every 24 hours. So you'll see them pin on Tuesday, and they're, not even an eighth of an inch in size, and then by Friday they're, some of the mushrooms will be 8 inches across.
Hmm. Hmm. So on your farm, what is a typical, and actually, I mean, like, I guess my question is, like, do you guys consider that a farm? I know it's a warehouse, but you're producing food. So, I mean, how do you talk about it?
I mean, yeah, it is as urban ag as it comes, you
Yeah.
know. It truly is. But it is kind of weird to, I guess, even for myself, to call it a farm, even
Mm.
though we do grow inside a warehouse that has, no central AC or heat or anything like that. So I guess it's more of an operation. But yeah, we are growing food, but
Yeah.
it's completely urban agriculture.
Very cool. So what does a typical week look like?
Um, so
That's a good question, man.
25 hours a day, 8 days a week. I mean,
Yeah.
so our farm is bootstrapped in every sense of the term. So Jordan and I have managed to build this farm up to a point where it is, and I mean, realistically, we've done everything with zero debt, zero leverage, and everything has been built from the ground up. So our mentality from day one has been, we're not going to scrimp on labor, and get things, and we're going to do it ourselves, I guess is what
Hmm.
I'm trying to say. So, we've had a part-time hand for most of the time that we've been in business, but it's only been the last 6 weeks that we've had a second hand helping us out. And that's only because, we've spread out what we're producing so much in the since COVID started. But let's see, a normal week, we make substrate on Mondays and Wednesdays. We inoculate those bags on Wednesday and Friday. There's cleaning that happens every day. We move bags from point A to point C to point A to point B to point C around, just as they move through the process in the farm. We have to harvest every day, sometimes twice a day for certain mushrooms. And then there's deliveries. So, I mean, and then we're also in 6 farmers markets every week. So it's busy, and there's always something to do, something to build, something to upgrade, something to fix.
Hmm. Okay, so the cleaning part, so is that the grow room, or is that just all different areas of their operation?
Yes.
The there is Cleaning is an absolute necessity. So, like hydroponics, we've created an artificial environment for these mushrooms. We've created an environment that we've intentionally created a sterile space inside these bags for the mushrooms that we want to grow. So if they get contaminated by bread mold or any of the other 1,000 different mold and fungus species that are out there, then they're going to run wild. So we tell our customers out at farmers market that our farm is probably one of the cleanest places you're ever going to see that produces food, like that grows food, because we have to clean everything all the time.
Mm.
Everything gets scrubbed, everything gets sanitized, everything gets washed at least 2 to 3 times a week. And that's a part of what we have to do, because cleaning is it's necessary. As if we skip a day, then spores start to build up in the fruiting room and contamination grows wild, and then we end up losing 30, 40, 50 bags. I mean, we have to keep everything super, super clean, and that's just the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
And part of COVID, whenever it really hit, that was one of the things that actually kind of threw us for a loop, is that, since we do clean so much and we try to keep our operation spotless, and then all of a sudden everybody in America wants to keep the inside of their living spaces spotless. Well, there was a lot of our stuff that we just weren't able to get because John Q. Public just went out and bought it all.
Yeah.
And so it kind of threw us for a loop there for about a month or two, because we were like, okay, where the heck are we going to get isopropyl alcohol?
Wow.
And then,
and gloves was the big thing.
Right.
Yeah, still gloves are like double the price. It's like a ripoff. I mean, I look at the prices of just the 100 count and I'm just like, oh my gosh, are you serious?
Talk to your local
$20 for 20 gloves. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Talk to your local food distributor that sells to restaurants. See if you can get an account with them and buy wholesale through them. That's what we ended up starting to do.
Yeah, we've got one down here town that I can go talk to. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the scale aspect that you guys, because you went from literally zero to now. Are you both full-time on the farm? How does that work?
Yeah, so in January, I made the decision that I was going to finish out my school year, and then I was going to stop doing that and start working full-time. When COVID came and the schools went to virtual education and such, I basically went to full-time at the farm starting March, right when everything kind of hit the fan. But yeah, no, Jordan and I are both full-time, more so in most cases. I'm super excited. We just started a rotation where every 2 weeks we each get 2 days off. So
that's fabulous.
Yeah, so we're on a 12 on, 2 off schedule now, and it works pretty well so far.
Nice. So you're actually starting.
It's nothing we can't handle.
Yeah. Yeah. You're making the business now start to work for you.
That's the hope.
Yes. So let's talk about, how do you have priorities? Obviously the priorities are you have to do like, making the bags and sterilization, but like, I'm sure there's like maintenance and then there's also like build out of new things. How do you make sure you know what needs to be the focus?
It just comes with extreme planning. We probably spend an hour or two a day, going back and forth on, okay, well, what's the next thing? How can we be better? And then we develop a plan and we just attack it. Like we're about to put up a new grow room. And so we developed a plan and we're going, head on with it. And we look for, okay, well, what is it that we need to improve on? How can we be better in this aspect? How can we save on, energy costs? How can we make our mushrooms absolutely the best damn mushrooms in Texas, that people can get a hold of? And so, yeah, we have, a certain schedule, like, we make spawn on certain days. We're making production blocks on certain days. We're cleaning certain areas certain days. And so just having that all kind of laid out, just because when it's in your own head, it's one thing, but when you have it on paper, now it's real. Right.
So do you actually have it on papers, on whiteboards? How do you keep track of all your lists?
So we're still evolving our systems, so to speak. But yeah, a lot of things that we do are on paper, physical hard copy, and with our employees, with us, when tasks are done, whoever does it signs off on it, and that's just the accountability for that. But there's also a lot of, we're finally in a point now with our revenue that we can afford to put things up and to do these new construction events that we're doing the way we really want to do them.
Yes, not the bootstrapped.
Right. When we started up last January, we had, I only had X dollars liquid that I could put in. Jordan only had X dollars that he could put in. And so we had a very finite budget. So we were like, okay, well, we want to do it like this, but we can't afford that. So how do we get as close to that as possible with what we can afford? So there was a lot of sweat equity. And a lot of what we've done actually since COVID started, we've actually probably put more money into the farm since COVID started than we probably did in the year and a month up to that point.
Wow.
We've done a lot of upgrades. We've put in the right equipment in the right way. We've upgraded the lab. We're putting up this new room now. And all of these things are what are going to allow us to not only, when COVID, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure later, but we expanded what we grow from 5 species to 12 plus, when COVID started. We've changed our entire mode of how we sell. So we're now looking at, okay, well, by these upgrades that we've put in, they're going to allow us to work at an even higher level, but at 50% of the labor cost, or we're going to save this much electricity on this, or we're going to save, we're not going to have to buy spawn from a supplier because we're going to make it ourselves. So we've really been attacking kind of piece by piece by piece over the last 6-7 months, all of these points that are making us much more efficient as a farm, as a business. So we're always evolving, but we're finally at a point where we can do things the first time the way we wanted to, the way we want to, as opposed to putting up what we can now and then upgrading it as we are able to 3 months, 6 months down the line.
What is the hardest thing that happened or that you guys have had to do since you started the business?
Ooh, I don't know. What do you
really
think?
I would say, at least for there's a lot of hobbyist kind of home growers. And so going from a hobby home grow operation to a true commercial operation, they are two completely different animals. There's a lot of things that you can get away with as a home hobby grower because you have one rent to pay, right? You have one electricity bill. And so maybe you have another job, and so you have expendable income, and maybe you're not tracking all of those expenses as things go on. And so you're just like, well, I'll buy bags whenever I run out, instead of, okay, well, what is our par level?
Yes.
Right? We need to always have, 2,000 of these on hand so that once we get down to 1,000, we buy another set. And it's just, there's so many different principles that apply in a commercial operation. And so there's also a lot of things that once you do get to a commercial operation, that Band-Aids work just for a short amount of time. And so you can only live on those for so long before things start breaking down. And so, like Adam said, we want to build it right the first time. Just because I have a kitchen background, I'll say this, there's a saying, said, make it right or make it twice. Right. So we'd rather make it right, now. And so, yes, it will be more expensive, but in the end, it's actually cheaper because you don't have to go back and fix things and get this other part that's going to cost you $30, $45 a month when you can spend the $500 and it's going to last you 3, 4, 5 years. Right. So going to that scale, which is kind of a learning curve, and especially in the mushroom growing community, there's not a ton of people that are just very free and willing, just give you advice on how to do it, because they've had to figure stuff out on their own, and rightfully so. Just like for our consultations, we're definitely, anything that we tell you is going to be worth its weight in gold. But there's a very good reason for that, because we've screwed it up enough times before you've ever spent money on making a mistake that you're gonna have to figure that out. But that's true in a lot of different industries, but especially in the mushroom growing community. There's a lot of people that have a very good standing operation going, and they have for 6, 7, 10 years. And so you kind of realize that, learning from that person, it's absolutely worth it, because I'm going to save time and money, but it is going to cost money up front, just like anything else. So that's definitely one of the big things. But for us, I mean, since January 2019, I mean, if you just look at the growth that we had from then until now, I mean, it was like, March or February of 2019, we were selling about 80 to 100 pounds. And then this year we were pumping out 500 right before, and we couldn't actually keep up. There was more still out there that we definitely could have had, pre-COVID.
Yeah, in February, we had a wait list of about 4 restaurants that wanted mushrooms from us, and we couldn't provide for them.
Wow.
And we were hitting between 500 and 550 pounds a week sold.
I remember actually, Adam, you texting and showing me pictures at that point, because you were saying we're just blowing it out of the water, and then COVID hit.
And then in 6 days, we lost 100% of our restaurant clients. And our entire business model literally crashed and shattered on the floor.
Flipped on its head.
We built the entire farm around the idea that we were going to provide the chefs in Dallas with the best damn mushrooms in Texas. And we did a few farmers markets in 2019, but we did them kind of as, well, hey, whatever mushrooms don't sell to the restaurants, we'll go to the farmer's market. And, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit 1st of March, we were very lucky. The farmers markets were just starting to open up. And within 3 weeks of COVID happening, we had gone from doing 1 market to doing 4. And then we had a couple others that opened up, in April, in May, and one more that opened in June. And we've transitioned to almost entirely to retail. Restaurants are starting to reopen. We're starting to pick some up, and that's wonderful. But we're basically at a retail point right now, and now we're looking ahead, trying to get ahead of the curve, because in Texas, farmers markets really don't run year round. Of the 6 that we're doing right now, only 2 of those will run through the winter. So
now you're having to pivot again to actually try to find customers one-on-one or online.
Right, exactly. So we're trying to ramp up our website sales. We're working with a couple of our chef partners to do some value add products and such. We actually just got our first sample of oyster mushroom jerky. So we're going to be piloting that at a couple of farmers markets this weekend. And then if that goes well, hopefully we'll start adding that to the website and be able to ship that out. So, I mean, there's, like Jordan was saying, going from a hobbyist in your garage and growing, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds.
Yeah.
But changing to a commercial standpoint, commercial is all about consistency. It's about knowing that every week you're going to be able to produce this much and sell that much. And that's where we're at right now, is trying to figure out not just the growing consistency and efficiency, but sales.
Very cool. Now,
quite honestly, Michael, it's actually made us into better farmers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's made you now dial in every aspect of the record keeping, of just understanding your craft so much more better. Because I think you went from 5 varieties to what, 12?
Yeah,
right.
At
exactly.
Our last count, we're
it's
over 12.
It's forced us to not ever become complacent.
Now, someone who's looking to go into mushroom production, trying to learn about the industry, would you recommend more of a didactic, online, or just learning from somebody, or hands-on? Do people do internships on this sort of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, you absolutely can. I mean, you can take an online course and they will definitely help out, because that's certainly something that you knew or you didn't know before. And now you actually get to see it, and you can see, at least whenever I take an online course, and if it's something physical, I'm like, okay, I do that with this in this way. So now you can physically see someone doing something, and then you get that kind of, energizing inspiration where you're like, yeah, I can absolutely do that. I'm smart enough to turn a torque wrench or, or whatever it may be,
But I think the other thing too is there's so many ways to grow mushrooms. So you have to make sure that you're actually working or looking at a system that actually makes sense for where you are. Because you're in Texas too. I mean, that's like you're dealing with a lot of heat.
Yes,
True.
Yes, we are. We've had a minor cold wave for the last week. Temperatures have only been in the high 80s, so it's been glorious.
We are at 40 degrees tonight.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Wow.
I'm so jealous.
I'm afraid of a frost, but I think we'll be fine.
Wow. So yeah, indoor controlled environment agriculture is something that can definitely be taught in a variety of ways. It's something that is super important, and I think it's one of the, personally with my experience with hydroponics and aquaponics and now mushrooms, this type of agriculture, you are absolutely going to save yourself so much money, but frustration, just stress in general, by going and taking a training course with someone, doing a consultation with a more experienced farmer in that niche, whatever, because of the fact that there are so many more facets, with as a soil grower, you need to know about the soil, you need to know about irrigation, you need to know, weather patterns and solar dispersal and all of that. But there's only so much. If you're in the right zone, then you can grow this. If you're not, then you can't. But with controlled environment agriculture, you can be literally anywhere in the world and you can create any environment that you want. We could be in the middle of Saskatchewan, we could be in Antarctica, we could be on the equator, and we can still create a room that is 68 degrees Fahrenheit and allows us to grow mushroom A, or a room that's 55 degrees Fahrenheit, we can grow king trumpets or whatever. It just, controlled environment agriculture, you need to know construction methods, you need to know everything about the species that you're growing, but you also need to know HVAC and heating and air ventilation and, just lighting and all of those other things.
Yeah.
So it's getting instruction in any form or fashion, whether it's a book or a training or a face-to-face consultation with somebody that does it professionally, it's absolutely necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's only so much.
But I will throw this in, it is very specific also to where you are in the world. Like for us, we grow off of sawdust, right?
Yeah.
So getting a consistent product such as like hardwood fuel pellets down in Texas, for people who don't use a pellet smoker or a grill or a big burner in their house.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty unheard of down here, just because it's pretty dang hot 6 months out of the year. But you can source hardwood fuel pellets, no problem, if you're in Detroit. But if you're also in the Bahamas, well, you're probably not growing off of sawdust.
Yeah.
Very common over there. They're growing off of sugarcane, I think it's bagasse or bagus. But you also may be in another area where straw is only available, So you have to look at what is available to you and what you can turn into a viable substrate, and with it's worth your time. Like a great book, you probably read it, Michael, The Dip, right?
Yep.
Where you can look at being able to discern a situation and say, okay, I should totally pursue that, or I should totally walk away. Right.
Yeah. And
you may be gung ho completely. I am, 100% mushroom man of the world. but there isn't a substrate local to you in your area that you can actually grow off of without paying an exorbitant cost to ship it in, you know?
Yeah.
So it may make sense not to wherever you're at. And so that's kind of the key, is to looking at, okay, what's available to me? Can I do it here? And is there even a market? And is there a market for me to source all of these, you know, different ingredients that I can then turn into something that I can grow on?
Yeah, it's too bad that mushrooms don't grow on used tires. With that, like to stop
Hey, they
here.
might.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, it's a new strain out there, I'm sure. With that, I'd like to stop
Right.
here, take a quick break. In a minute, we'll be back with Adam and Jordan. Hey, thriving farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, you know, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. Hey guys, we're back with Adam and Jordan from Texas Fungus, talking all things mushrooms. And talk to us a little bit about the roles on the farm. Do you guys each have a specific area that you focus on, or is it more equally splitting of the responsibilities?
Well, we kind of do everything, but we kind of also are trying to split into roles that we're more in control of. Jordan is, in my opinion, he's by far the better, like, mycologist and grower specifically. So when it comes to growing mushrooms and such, I always defer to whatever he wants to do as far as that. I've kind of taken more the lead on just the paperwork and the business side, dealing with invoicing and records and such. And I'm working a little bit more with the retail farmers market side and mostly keeping the records and such on that. We're going to be beefing up our training process for our market employees, because we think that's a point where we're leaving some money on the table, so to speak. So I'm going to work on building up some of that. So I might be picking your brain, Michael. But
Yeah, we're going to be taking your class.
Yes. And that actually has an entire module on that. So you guys are going to get, the training aspect is spot on, because it's so important. I absolutely think if you think you're leaving money on the table at the market, you probably are leaving money on the table. So yeah.
That's good to hear. So cool.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're going to work on, but I don't know. What do you think, Jordan? You want to chime in on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, whenever it comes to the day-to-day, yeah, I mean, at least I can speak for myself, and I guess and somewhat for Adam. We try to focus on each other's strengths, you know, and we triple down on those, right? So yeah, there's certain things that I am way better at, you know, than Adam is, and there's a lot of things that he's way better at than me, you know. Just when we were building certain things, he kind of looked at me and he was just like, okay, you don't know what an impact rated, you know, this thing is? And I was like, they didn't have that in aisle 14 whenever I Googled it, you know. But, you know, things of that nature. And I've certainly, I guess, I think come a long way, at least in that side. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to, you know, what we're growing, I'm kind of the main decider on that, in which, you know, I'm like, okay, well, what time of the year should we start growing king trumpet? You know, what time of the year should we start growing pink oyster? And so there is kind of that side where, similar to like a field crops farmer, where they're looking at, okay, well, when should we start planting pumpkin seeds? Right. And so, yeah, I look at that, and then I'm constantly, at least for me, I'm really diving in on a few different species, just to make sure that if we are going to spend our time and if we are going to grow this, is it going to be viable? Is it going to be worth it? And are we going to get the maximum amount of, utility from that? Right.
Yeah.
So I look at that, and then, whenever it comes to like, I probably spend not enough time as I should, just looking at petri dishes and looking at, our spawn bags and making sure that, okay, is there something a little bit that's throwing it off? Because that leads directly to your production bags, right? And so all of a sudden, when I thought everything was looking great, and then our mushrooms come out looking like hell, and I'm like, oh God, well, time to go back to the drawing board, And so I got to really, really dive in on, okay, should we fruit things this way? Should we fruit things that way? Where should we position things? What's the ideal temperature? Does this really like a lot of humidity up front and then not so much at the end? There's a lot of that. And so going from 5 species up to 12 plus, it's certainly made both of us better growers. But at the end of the day, we are certainly figuring some things out, and definitely the hard way. But it's going to be a much more rewarding aspect at the end of it, because we've got some cool things going on that just not a lot of people are doing, especially when people first get into mushrooms. They go into, the easier species. Oysters are fairly easy, but and they're very forgiving, I should say. But there are some other things out there that people really, really want. And there's about 3 or 4 people in the country that really know how to do it well. And so if we can get on that side of things, and if we can do it in a short amount of time, not only are we going to win, but everybody else will too, because now we don't have to have a shipment of mushrooms coming in from California, to the DFW Metroplex when it's available from a local farmer. Right. So that's one thing that at least I'm looking at. And at least for me, I kind of deal with the wholesale side of things, where I really focus on that farmer chef relationship, and so, what's big to me is that whenever a chef goes from one restaurant to another restaurant, which is very common, and also, in a short amount of time, that we still keep that relationship. And so that, throughout the year, I can tell them, yes, we have these things all throughout, these certain mushrooms all throughout the year, but, in the fall, only these are available. And so, they really jump on that, because they also see something that they just can't get anywhere else. And so, we're looking at, of course, growing a lot of different things, but how can we become better at each and every level? How can we, like we're right now, what we've really been focused on is, dialing in analytics, where Fridays, we're looking at, okay, well, how much did we actually sell at each individual market per species each week? Why does this one only love this kind of mushroom and these ones don't? So there are certain outliers hanging out there that, we're still figuring out. And so, yes, are there still more questions than answers? Absolutely. But we are, at least in my opinion, I think we're getting ahead of the curve. And certainly and like Adam said earlier, is that we have poured so much more and into the operation now than we did before. And we were certainly in a much better position to do that, because we just said, okay, once things kind of clear up, or at least get into a manageable position, that we want to be known as, no one else makes a decision to go anywhere else to go get their mushrooms.
Yeah, you're the game in town. And I remember Adam mentioning that when you first started, you were the only game, but now there's other people trying to get in, but you're still head and shoulders above them because you're just innovating so rapidly.
Right. And so, there's about 7 or 8 other people in the Metroplex, where I was at 3 years ago. So yeah, does that kind of make you lose sleep at night? A little bit, but we're not super cocky. We know where we've been.
Yeah.
And we know we never want to go back there. And so, yeah, we've actually had people just say, yeah, can we come out to your farm? And they're like other local growers. And we're like, sorry, man, you're not invited, and then it's not in a rude way, but we've got our own bills to pay. We actually have a staff that we got to make sure that they get a paycheck, And so if we go to feed our own competition locally, well, we might as well just pull out a 45 and shoot ourselves in both feet. So
with that team, do you have specific roles that they do when they come on, or how do you divide roles between them?
Absolutely. I mean, those guys are straight on for, to help us with production work.
Okay.
Because and Adam actually brought this up to me the other day is that, okay, look at the tasks that you do. So what are worth, $10 an hour? What are worth $100 an hour? What are worth $1,000 an hour? And so, are we looking at making sure that, are we not doing those $10 an hour jobs? Sure. But we are still doing some of that, right? But is our time better spent planning and making sure that we're being, innovative and coming out with new things? Because at the end of the day, all the responsibility falls on Adam and I's shoulders.
Yeah. And it's one of those that, Jordan and I built this farm by doing those tasks, by doing the basic production tasks and doing the day-to-day operations. And to be honest, I mean, that as a farmer, those are the fun tasks.
I know.
You get to see something happen and see something develop. Those are the days where, I come home exhausted at the end of the day when I've been just absolutely busting things left and right. But those are the days where I feel like I've accomplished and done something. The day where I sit at the desk in the office and I'm going through paperwork and looking at, analytics of what sold at what market and what we need to send the next week and this and that. And, all of those things that are vital and important for us to grow. I know that's valuable to the farm and that's going to get us to the next level, but I don't feel the same level of accomplishment. And that's something that I've had to get through my head, that for us to really get to that next level and really become the better farm, I personally have to let go of some of the things that are more enjoyable for me, or that are that make me feel more accomplished. And I mean, the guys that we have working with us, they're great guys. And like Jordan said, their job is to come in and do a lot of the basic production tasks to allow Jordan and I to spend more time developing the relationships with those chefs that he does, or for me to work with the market managers at the farmers markets and just to work on the marketing and the website. And, those things are the revenue generating tasks. Those are the ones that are going to make us a bigger farm and a better farm with a wider reach. And those are the tasks where we need to focus, especially now. And we need to get our efficiencies in place with our equipment, with our systems and such, that allow our farm hands, allow our guys, our crew, to do more in less time, so that we can afford to keep them. I mean, that's really kind of where we are.
I remember when I was running our farm, I felt my role and I was actually looking to try to hire someone into that role. But I was more and I'm sure, Jordan, you're very familiar with this, but I think it's the expediter in the kitchen, is the person who kind of stands there and just makes sure everyone is like keeping on top of everything.
Right.
So that's just kind of, I feel like that manager role is just setting up people, making sure they have the stuff they need to be successful, and then just feeding the task to them.
Yeah,
so let's
absolutely.
But you still need to, at the end of the day, you still need to be able to, at least in my opinion, you need to be able to do that job better than they do.
Oh yeah.
But you also need to have the competency to be able to teach them how to do it effectively. Right. And that's what we're looking at, putting in, SOPs and protocols of, this is exactly how you do Project A, because we've been there, we've done that. It's not like we just copied and pasted it from some PDF we found on the internet. It actually applies to exactly what you're doing here, And so, yeah, things like that. But yeah, just as Adam said, are there certain things where we like to do and we could probably do it better, but is it a better use of our time where we can spend 2 hours doing Y and it's going to result into Z,
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the marketing. I know you've changed that multiple times. You talked about the aspects of that. What varieties of mushrooms sell well in your areas?
Honestly, we don't grow a mushroom that doesn't sell. I mean, that would be kind of silly for us. Everything that we grow has at least 1 or 2 channels that can't get enough of them. Right now we're growing 4 to 5 different types of oysters. We were growing 5, but it's getting colder, so we're kind of phasing the pink oysters out. But we grow 4 to 5 types of oyster mushrooms, but we've got lion's mane, coral tooth, chestnut, piapino. What else do we have, Jordan? King trumpet,
maitake. We have one that's called Nebrodini that we're still
experimenting
ironing out, but reishi as well. But yeah, I mean, just as he said, I mean, whenever we show up, because the majority of people that show up to a farmer's market really have never seen the mushrooms that we bring.
Yeah.
They're very familiar with those agaricus, that's the genus, but white button cremini portobello. Mm-hmm. And so as long as we don't bring those commodity mushrooms, it's really not a hard sell. We of course, we taste everything that we grow, so we can effectively sell those to other people. So we can say, yeah, lion's mane is more savory, but coral tooth has this awesome sweet flavor.
Yeah.
Because we've tasted it. We've done it. Mm-hmm. And so people are just like, oh my God. And then they come back the next week and it's just, they're like, well, like we actually have a problem right now because we sell so much lion's mane during the week because through one of our chefs who buys a lot, but also we have some other orders that come in. And by the time we start boxing up mushrooms to go out on Friday, we're like, holy cow, we don't have enough lion's mane to take to this market. And those customers are probably going to put our head on a spit, if we don't start bringing more.
Jordan actually got yelled at by, what was it? It was several people, right? Last week at that market in particular, that you didn't have any lion's mane.
Oh,
boy. Because while I was setting up, I sold all that I had to other market vendors. Before the market started.
That's amazing.
So when 8 o'clock hit, I didn't have any.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
yeah, it was interesting.
So like marketing wise, so lion's mane is a great example. When we started at our first farmer's market in 2019, we would bring, 10 pounds of oyster mushrooms out and 5 to 10 pounds of lion's mane out. And people looked at it and we constantly got wait, that's a mushroom. It looks like cauliflower. And so there's all of this, but people were, the people at the market were afraid, for lack of a better term, of the lion's mane. It didn't match what they thought a mushroom should look like. And they were afraid to get it. And we couldn't sell lion's mane at all. So for a period of like 3 to 4 weeks, we just decided that anytime anybody bought oyster mushrooms or something else from us, we were going to give them a 1/4 pound of lion's mane free and tell them how to cook it. And we did that for about 3 weeks. Maybe it was a month, but I think it was 3 weeks. But after that, we had this rabid following that came to the market specifically for lion's mane, to the point where there were some weeks where I'd bring out 10 to 15 pounds of lion's mane and I'd sell out of that before I sold out of oysters.
Mm-hmm. And the lion's
mane, that one market, you brought 20 something pounds out and sold out by, 2 hours.
Yeah. By like 10:30. Yeah. I remember that.
Right.
And lion's mane isn't a cheap mushroom.
No, it's not. It's So we have our oyster mushrooms, and shiitakes are our base mushrooms, and then we have our specialties, and that's pretty much everything else we grow. And yeah, lion's mane is not cheap, but it's people love it, and it's a really versatile mushroom that can be used in a lot of ways. It's like Jordan said, it's savory, but it's got a crab meat flavor to it, but you can also grill it or smoke it. I mean, you
It's
can
also
do all
medicinal.
sorts of things. It's also medicinal. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I know a lot
super
of
cool.
people are interested here for when we start growing lion's mane because of there's one person that said they'll take all our seconds because they want to turn that into some sort of health powder or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
During COVID, we started looking at value-added products, and one of the ones that we've looked at pretty strongly is medicinal tinctures, and we're still working out some of the details on all of that. But I mean, we're working on this, and there's a lot there that we can do. So it's coming.
Jordan, can you give us an overview of like the growing process? I mean, from like you get I know you're doing your own spawn now, but you get I don't know what's called before spawn, but I guess the syringes. I know because I've gotten some syringes before of mushroom spawn. So talk to us through the entire process.
Sure. I mean, when it comes to mushroom growing, it kind of has this circular life cycle, right? So whenever you see mushrooms out in the wild, you're looking at a like ice cube compared to the iceberg, right? So mushrooms are just the fruiting body. The only reason mushrooms actually really exist is because the mycelium, which is the mushroom root system, feels like its life cycle is going to end. So it produces a mushroom to it produces a mushroom to shoot out and sporulate, to shoot out more spores so it can keep its life cycle going on. Because mushrooms, by biology, they're decomposers, right? So they just take over whatever medium they attach to and just say, I'm going to suck all the energy out of this. And so when it comes to it, like I said, it's a circular life cycle. So it goes from spore to spores mating, and then they germinate, and then they colonize whatever area, and then they just grow. So and when I say they grow, I'm talking about the mycelium. So the mycelium is actually one of the longest living organisms on the planet, and it can actually stretch from coast to coast all the way, and produce mushrooms as it goes. And so when it comes to like the life cycle, what we really search for are a great species. So when we identify a great species, we're looking at number one, can we grow it off of what we normally grow on, or do we need to add something slightly different to it, and will it make it a viable product that we can still, does it make sense for us to grow that, right? And so there's kind of that deciding factor where you have to discern whether, okay, is this totally worth it, or should we just put that on the shelf and deal with that at a later date? And so like oysters are very aggressive. They grow very fast, and they shoot out a lot of spores. That's why they're all over the freaking world, right? In some capacity. There's all kinds of species of Pleurotus, and so basically what I spend, most of my time on is where you can take, and you can even take, and that's the great thing about mushrooms, is that you don't need seeds. And that's really what Adam referred to in the very beginning, why mushroom growing is so different, is that you don't actually need seeds. It's that you can take a piece of mycelium, you can take a tissue culture from the inside of a mushroom and spread that out onto a petri dish, and then spread that out into 100 more petri dishes. And then eventually that will hit, some kind of very nutritious grain. And then from that grain, which you're basically making mushroom seeds, at that point, or at least that's the best analogy I can come up with, is that then you propagate that out. And so really the key to it is finding, because mycelium is so wild, especially when you look at it under a microscope, is that you will start to see certain parts of the mycelium grow out way faster than others, and certain areas of it mate way quicker, way more aggressive, and there's no real rhyme or reason as to why. They just start to take off so much more. And so then you try to isolate, and you do a lot of strain isolation. And so, and then you try to isolate, okay, I want this super aggressive part of it. And then it just goes nuts, you know? And then eventually, you know, once you finally see that part of it grow out onto a production block, and then you're like, wow, that didn't do anything. That was really worthless, you know, or you actually hit, you know? And so we just try to keep our batting average pretty high, so to speak. So yeah, throughout the process, there's a lot of different ways you can start. You can do it with a spore syringe and go straight to grain. You can take that and go right to an agar plate with it, you know? So really the key to it is propagating it out cleanly and successfully, but also in the right way.
Yeah. So, all right. So you've got, let's say the syringe, let's say you go right to the grain, and of course you have to sterilize the grain before you inoculate it. And then it's going to grow that out. Then you're going to put that with your bags, which are going to be sterilized as well.
Yep.
And then from the bags are going to, how long do you have to colonize them for? Because they have to colonize next.
Well, that's depending on the species. Certain species are very fast, like oysters, right? And but some other ones, like maitake, hen of the woods, or even reishi, which is really long. It takes a long time for those to colonize, and that's just very specific to that species. And so a lot of the time that I spend is, okay, I try to challenge not only my own thoughts, but what is actually out there available for the information. And so I try to see, okay, well, how can I take that and then tweak that a little bit to where maybe it's better or maybe it's more effective for us. I mean, so far I've been going through one article that I had to translate from Korean the other day, because it was an article from 2006, and I had to translate it specifically because they were growing on what they could. So one of the ingredients in there was dried bean curd, right?
Yep.
And that's just for one species out of, one of the other 11. It doesn't probably make sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing is, okay, what is that perfect substrate? What is that perfect mode of operation to make something grow out successfully, cleanly, and where it could be done on a true commercial scale. Like I said, when you're doing this stuff at home, it's not really that big of a deal because you probably have another job that still pays the bills. But for us, every second, every decision matters.
Absolutely. Adam, what would you say? You've done a few different things in agriculture and you've seen a lot of different operations. What would you say the biggest mistake beginning farmers make is?
In general, I would say farmers suffer from two main problems. And one of them really is I would say probably most people when they get into starting a business is, you have this great idea for a service or a product that you love, and you get so excited that you are able to produce that you don't check and see if there's really a market that wants to buy it. So that's one of the big mistakes that I've seen just kind of across the board. But with farmers, I saw this several times when I was consulting for people with aquaponics and hydroponics, is they wanted to do this because they wanted to grow XYZ crop, these particular things because they loved them. And they got offended when I told them, okay, that's great, but as a farmer, you're in business. And if you can't sell it, then there's no point in growing it. And So once again, that goes back to the same thing, that there's no market.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to combine with having your eyes bigger than your pockets, and biting off more than you can chew. Start simply. In our operation right now, growing mushrooms, we make our own spawn. We produce our own bags. We fruit everything out. We do 12 different species of mushrooms. If you're going to start out and you want to do a mushroom farm, okay, start off by buying blocks from a reputable source. Don't worry about colonizing. Don't worry about sterilizing. Don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
inoculating. Just buy the blocks and fruit them out and get that specific set of tasks and procedures wired in, so you know how to do it, guaranteed. There's still a lot of moving parts just in that one little facet. And when you feel you have that dialed in, okay, well then maybe you can start making your blocks, but buy your spawn from a reputable supplier.
Mm-hmm.
Because our entire workflow, I've watched Jordan switch over to making spawn for our farm, and the workload that he has taken on by adding that into the farm and into his daily tasks has easily doubled. Because now, in addition to producing 210 production bags a week of 12 different species, he's now managing agar plates and spawn production for probably somewhere between 40 strains, 30 to 40 strains that we have on agar, and probably 8 to 12 species that he does on spawn every week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge level of work and detail that you have to keep track of. So start simply, always.
So on the agar plates, how long can the strain stay on those?
Jordan?
I mean, ideally, you don't want them to stay living on it for so long, but yes, depending on the species, you can refrigerate that.
Okay.
So, except for like pink oyster, at least I've yet to find a strain that you can refrigerate.
Oh, okay. It's really warm.
Right. Yeah, it's a very tropical kind of strain. But there's some plates that I've pulled out of the fridge, and then I've made spawn, or at least generation 1 spawn with them, and they work out just fine. And that's just because when they were made very cleanly. Mm-hmm. And so that's the name of the game, is just trying to stay as clean as possible, Mm-hmm. And I'll kind of keep a restaurant reference that someone once told me, is that at a restaurant that I was working at, our server staff actually got a higher rating than the kitchen staff. And the chef at the time just straight up told me, whenever I screwed up a steak and I thought I could get by with like, yeah, well, it's a little charred, but maybe they'll say nothing. And he just told me, he was like, we can't be 4-star just out front. We have to be 4-star back here. Mm. And so that's why I'm making sure that, every time that I step into the lab, I'm doing it with purpose. Mm-hmm. And making sure that, I'm not just going through the motions of doing stuff, that each and every time it's a completely different mindset. Like you will have, Jordan that's kind of, go crazy, and maybe I'll bust your balls, while we're working and stuff. And, I make fun of how old Adam is and things like that. Yeah. But whenever it comes to working in the lab, it is absolutely go time. Mm-hmm. Because there is no mistakes that can afford to be made. Mm-hmm. And so you got to take a very serious approach to it, and yeah, especially when you're working on agar, because especially when you want to if you don't have, specialized equipment, just looking at something with the naked eye, it will look like, oh, that's growing out nice. That's kicking butt. We should go ahead and, start making production bags with it. And then whenever you do, and then you realize, wow, that did nothing. Mm. So time to go back to square one.
Or you didn't see a contamination and all of a sudden 30 bags turn green overnight. So, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's a big production cost. Mm-hmm. Because not only did it cost you the substrate, it cost you the labor, it cost you the electricity to
Mhm.
to not only cook them, but also to incubate them, because we're, especially in the summer months, you know, in our space, we have no central heat and air.
Yeah,
So
you're
we have to
cooling
put
that
air
area.
conditioning, yeah, exactly, on individual rooms. And so taking 100-degree air, and even we've even temped our roof with a temp gun, and then sometimes it's read 125 plus.
Whew.
So we have to take that air and then cool it down to about 70 to our incubation room. And then finally it gets into our grow room, and or if it does make it to our grow room, maybe it contaminates that way.
Yeah.
Right. You know, or we're trying to go even cooler.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts to it, you know?
And once again, that comes back to why we have to clean every day, because the more contamination, I mean, there's mold, spores, and contamination everywhere. That's always going to be.
Yeah.
But the less we clean, the more likely it is that contamination will get into the bags or onto the fruiting blocks. And so
we just try to give a good environment for the mushrooms to grow as best as we can, because then we have to go back home each and every day and say, okay, did we give it our all? Did we give the best environment that we could have provided, or did we slack off?
Yeah.
So if you could pick one, what would be your favorite tool for farming?
For farming or for running?
Well, I'm still calling your mushroom. I'm calling that a farm. You're producing food.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It absolutely is a farm. I'll fight anybody that says it isn't. You know, I mean, it as Jordan said, we are the epitome of an urban farm.
Yeah.
I mean, we are absolutely non-traditional. You drive into our business park. There's 3 guys doing mechanic and auto body work, and the guy next to us is a carpentry shop. I mean, you'd never know that there was a farm in there, much less one of the largest, if not the largest, mushroom farm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But no, we are absolutely a farm. Favorite tool? I actually have no idea. That's an odd question that I haven't thought of. Jordan, you go first.
My favorite tool is absolutely the chainsaw. There are very few satisfying tools than a chainsaw.
Yes, but we don't use a
Now,
chainsaw.
I don't
in
use
our
that
farm,
every
Jordan.
day. Well, I can use it on you if I want to.
Hey now. OSHA violation.
But so if you're going to grow outdoors and you want to do like log inoculation, man, it in the fall, in the winter, when you're out there and you're slaying down trees, that's really fine. I would say probably the most favorite or useful tool, an impact driver. Yeah, that gets stuff done pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I could not live without mine.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm going to be using it significantly tomorrow, actually.
I would have to say that, for running the farm and for actually doing the business side, as much as I hate it, I couldn't do without my cell phone. The fact that we're instantly connected, we can contact our chefs, our market managers, our employees, that we can buy a replacement part if we need it, or order hardwood pellets or whatever. I mean, it's funny. Jordan actually said this to one of our crew the other day, that we don't let them be on their phones because it's a distraction for them. But that rule doesn't apply to Jordan and I, because we run the farms through our phones. We run
it wouldn't exist if we didn't have a cell phone.
So when we're doing a task and all of a sudden we step offline to answer a task, a text, or to respond to a phone message or whatever, that's vital importance. So it's certainly not as cool as a chainsaw, but probably the one that I use the most is my phone.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a necessity, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you're out in the field. I mean, it's one of the things. We had a homeschool group out to the farm today, and they were doing a tour around, and one of the women had a app, and I think Google does this too, but this was an expensive, I think a $30 app, which is expensive for apps go, but it was literally every single leaf on the different trees that we have on our property, or just the plants we have. It was instantly recognizing them which is so cool. And just like, just thinking about like that now getting that for mushrooms and getting that for like contamination would be cool. But I mean, just the other aspects of it, I'm using my phone out there for ordering parts and calling in orders and, just dealing with different people. And we have the sunflower field going on right now, and everything is being scheduled through a application because we only have very limited parking. So we can't have like hundreds of people at a time. So we have this little app that every half hour it releases 8 tickets, and people can like book one of those 8 tickets. So it's really worked out really well. And
Very
then,
nice.
Yeah. And then when people show up, we ask them to donate. They can do that through Venmo or PayPal. We ask them to rate and check in on the farm so that they are, giving us good feedback, as well as pushing our Facebook ranking up. And when you get your Facebook ranking and people keep checking in, it keeps pushing that out to more and more people. So yeah, I mean, the phone it's unfortunately, and I guess on the other side, like my wife and I are finishing up the movie, The Social Dilemma. And we're seeing, and again, the phone isn't social media, but social media is tied so much to all of that. So on one aspect, yeah, it's indispensable. And another aspect, it's super scary.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys believe that now is the best time to be starting to farm?
I mean, when's the right time to have a family, start a family, have a baby? There is no right time, but yeah, if that's absolutely what, at least for me, if farming makes you happy, you should put happiness above everything else.
Yeah. If it's really what you want to do, today is better than tomorrow, but it's not as good as yesterday. I mean, they're starting a farm doesn't mean you have to go out and buy 50 acres and a tractor and this and that and quit your job. I mean, God, how many farmers do I know of that, one or both people in the family have off-farm employment and they farm part-time, and farming is not so much a job as it is a calling. And if you want to do it, but find a way to do it that balances with your life and your lifestyle and with the resources you have available.
I love that. Because the resources you have available will be very different than the person next door. And I think the thing too, which is really cool with both of you, is you guys, you didn't wait around to start. You just started, and you both were bootstrapping from the start. You didn't have a ton of liquid assets, as you said, but you just made it happen and got it going. And now you're, I mean, who else can say, within a year of starting my business, or a year and a few months, I literally kissed the 9 to 5 goodbye. So,
kissing my 9 to 5 away has been a process I've been looking for the way to do it for about the last 10 years. So, it was one of those. And to be honest, yes, I'm full-time employed by the farm, but my salary has gone down almost 50%. So, I mean, I have the luxury of, between my wife's employment and my own employment, we can still make things work. We're much tighter than we were last year, for certain. But like I said, it's a calling, and I am super stressed most days, but it's a good stress and I enjoy it, and I wouldn't choose to do anything else.
Well, and I think you said too, you're investing heavily right now into the business, and hopefully eventually that will start to end.
Oh God, it better.
But I keep hearing about all the different things you're buying, and I'm like, okay, they're not gonna have to buy another one of those for a while. So they should run out of things to upgrade.
Right.
I mean, maybe never. Maybe you're gonna need your own building next.
Don't joke about that, Michael. Don't. We did. We talked on Monday. We had the opportunity to go up and buy some equipment from another grower that was shutting down. Her sales, she couldn't pivot enough, so we ended up buying some equipment off of her. And on that drive, Jordan and I were talking about, okay, well, what about next year? If we expand into more farmers markets, if we do this, if we do that, if we, all of these different options that are potential at this point. Okay, well, if we go this direction, we're going to need these things, and we're going to need a place to store that. So we need to look for another. Do we buy a shed and put it in front of our warehouse, or do we rent another 1,000 square feet where we can open up a retail storefront? And so no, I don't want to get any more space, but we're probably going to end up getting it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where can people find more about you and your work?
Check us out on Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, and honestly, TexasFungus.com.
Yep.
We're coming out with a 10-day mushroom intensive.
Nice.
And, once you sign up for it, there's going to be a plethora of information, which at least for us can seem didactic at times,
Mm-hmm.
but it will be loaded with information to the gills as far as what to do with these awesome mushrooms once you get them. And then it's kind of a challenge of, cook mushrooms for 10 days and see how you feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How's your body going to react to that? And then at least in my opinion, you'll come out on the other end feeling completely different and a much more, healthier person.
So talk to us about, because you guys have the mushrooms there locally, but you've also done grow kits and you've shipped those before. I mean, we were working with you guys when we were for a while there, helping you guys get those kits out to people, and people loved them. Talk to us a little bit about that process, because are you still shipping those across country?
We are. We're doing a few kits at this point every week. We do about 12 to 15 every week, and honestly, we're selling most of those directly through our local farmers markets. But we are definitely going to be ramping up our kit production for the holiday season. We've had a number of people email us or message us and request, are we going to do kits for the holidays, for Christmas gifts? So we're working out some details on that. What we're probably going to do is do like a pre-order type situation.
Gotcha.
Where people can pre-order it in advance and then it will ship out, and we'll probably have a couple ship dates where you can get it either before Christmas or at Christmas or after Christmas, whatever. Maybe get a gift certificate or a card at Christmas for the gift giving, whatever, but we'll figure that out. But we're going to do that. Like I said, we've got a couple other value-added products that we're going to put on the website to ship. But we've had request after request to be able to ship fresh mushrooms around the country, and we're just unfortunately not set up for that. So that was what really kind of got us into the grow at home kit idea at the beginning. Was somebody wanted a box of mixed oysters, and we're like, well, we can't ship you the oysters, but how about we ship you a ready to fruit block and just tell you how to fruit it on your kitchen counter. So we do oyster mushrooms and the lion's mane in the kits. So
very cool.
They've been a good seller so far.
Very cool. Well, thank you too much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know that it's late, and you guys, I'm sure, have a lot of the things you'd love to do. It's the end of the week, but I really appreciate you spending, oh my gosh, what has this been, an hour and a half with us? So
it's always a good time.
Yes. Yeah. And Adam, you are a great host. I remember we were down there. Was it last year or the year before? Actually, 2 years ago, we were down there.
2 years ago, yes. End of summer, wasn't it?
I forget exactly when, but yes. But last year we were trying to catch up, and then we just got deathly ill at my brother's up there. So we never ended up seeing you. But I missed seeing the operation, which was super disappointing. But I will be down there, I'm sure, at some point. Not sure if it'll be this winter, but probably in the future at some point. So
absolutely.
You're welcome anytime.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, again, thank you too so much. And we will check in at a later point again.
Sounds great. Thanks, Michael.
Michael, it was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, guys. Looking to start or grow your farm business? You need a compelling farm plan that you can share with investors, convince your significant other with, or just to give yourself peace of mind. We have created a new program called the Start Your Farm Intensive. In it, you'll learn how to develop your farm idea to make sure you take all the factors into consideration for your context and your climate. You'll learn how to craft a one-page business plan that helps clearly define your target customer and lay out the necessary characteristics of your business. You will understand the 3 financial documents that every farm needs to fill out to make sure you are making money. And we'll give you all that as templates too, so you have the templates to fill out for your farm business. We'll also go through funding, so where to go for funding for the various stages and parts of your business. Starting a farm is hard. Starting a farm without a proven plan is almost impossible. Join us today. Go to growingfarmers.com/start for more information. Now, what did past students have to say? Corey says, the exercises and spreadsheets helped me make the learning process easier and more real. Jenna says, I gained the support system and resources I needed for when I'm ready for the next step. And finally, the worksheets make you think out every aspect of the business step by step. Go ahead, join us today, growingfarmers.com/start. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.